Well, the markets are open. Happy Monday to you. I'm Marlon Bowling with you. Let's take a look at how they are opening up, and then we'll get some expert commentary here. On the corn market first today, let's see, it is down a penny. That's basically about the way we finished up that Globex trade this morning. December down now a penny and a quarter at 354 and a quarter, and that would be about 3.5 cents off of its overnight high. Now the September is in delivery, and we'll get to those in a minute too. Let's take a look at the soybean trade. We'll see how we're opening up there. On November, we're now a penny higher, and we're at 858 and 3/4. So a very timid start. It's just a little firmer, but not big gains by any stretch. In fact, we're a penny higher from November all the way through next May. They're all a penny higher. That's kind of odd. Looking at the wheat market in Chicago, we have the December contract now just a 1/2 cent lower at 463 1/4. And in the Kansas City market here, to get things rolling today, we currently have December down 3 3/4. We're at 389 1/2. And Minneapolis has December trading a penny lower at 493 1/4. Let's bring in Brian Hoops. He's with Midwest Market Solutions in Springfield, Missouri, and get his thoughts about today's trade. Very quiet, almost flat trade here this morning, at least on the corn and soybean side. Brian, I don't know if the harvest activity is starting to kick in the South, if that's starting to get more market attention or what. I noticed over the weekend where there was maybe, Tennessee and Kentucky, at least 10 to 20% of the corn already taken out here.
Yeah, there is parts of the country that's starting to see some harvest activity. Those are not major corn, soybean producing states, so I think the trade will largely ignore any results coming out of those areas. Once we get into more of the I states and, Missouri and the Dakotas, that's when really we'll start to pay attention to how these yields are coming in respective to what the USDA has to say about those yields. And it may take until October before we have that news, unfortunately. Harvest is going to be delayed, and any of the crop that gets harvested somewhat early will be the stuff that's planted early, and I think that will be the highest yielding corn and soybean crops that come to market.
All right, we did have an overnight sale this morning. We can show that to our viewers. It was a sale of corn, and the buyer was once again one of our most reliable buyers here in recent months, Mexico, 651,670 tons. So 2/3 of a million tons basically sold to Mexico once again, and we thank them for that business. The deliveries were out a little bit ago, and we had the corn deliveries coming in at 742 contracts today. That was higher than what we had Friday. Soybeans, 409 contracts. We had soybean meal at 112. And the wheat deliveries were way down now. They're almost back to zero. Chicago wheat only 3, Kansas City wheat only 4 contracts posted for delivery. So the corn, with it amping up from what had been, I believe, like 640 contracts last Friday, is that concerning to you, Brian?
We're getting into the end of the contract life here. It expires on Friday the 13th, so we've got a few more days to get through deliveries. Certainly increasing deliveries is going to be a negative factor for the market. We already have slow export business, and a sign of even slower business is the fact that we see deliveries start to ramp up, and I think that's kind of what we're seeing in here. Weather-wise, there's just not much of a threat for corn and soybeans to ignite anyone to step in and buy from a speculative standpoint. Spring wheat belt's going to be wet this next week. That should be supportive to spring wheat futures. We could be talking about maybe some disease or even lack of yield loss and quality issues on the spring wheat contracts.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Now, if you would, sit tight, and we'll come back here after a quick break, and then we'll take a look at how we're opening up in livestock. That was a very weak close to the week last Friday on the livestock trade. That meant cattle and hogs, and we'll see how they're opening up when we come back. We're back with you, and we're talking with Brian Hoops of Midwest Market Solutions now, and he's in Springfield, Missouri. Let's take a look at our livestock trade, see how we're opening up. It was a limit down close on October live cattle Friday. They were down $3. And a lot of folks said, well, that means expanded limits today. Well, we don't need it right now. We have the October contract down 47 cents. We're at 94.40, but we are seeing some follow through selling here today. The December contract down 20 cents at 99.55. So the first 2 months down below $100. and October significantly so. Now, the other months are still above it. We have February at 106.13. That's down 28 cents. On the feeder cattle side, on the feeders, we are down $1.08 in the October contract. We're now at 129.82. In November, down $1 at 129.38. So it's off of its earlier high this morning by about 80 cents or so. Lean hogs, which had several contracts limit down on Friday to close things out, right now we're mixed, but mainly higher. We have the nearby October up $1.35 at 64.85. In December, just a nickel lower at 62.42. That's just a couple of ticks, and now it's 8 lower. February down 22 at 70.63, and then you have the spring months next year a little bit higher. So let's go back to Brian Hoops. And Brian, the way things are opening up here this morning, it seems a little bit timid compared to the way we closed on Friday.
Yeah, and that's probably justified. Low follow-through selling, but no one's really willing to jump in aggressively till we see some of the show list numbers. All the news so far last couple of weeks have been real bearish. Lower cash trade, increased steer weights, cutout values are sharply lower. So you've got to find some sort of a fundamental news spark that would turn things back around. Show list numbers that come out around midday, maybe they will be smaller and we could see a kind of a reprieve from some of this selling as trade will then expect cash to kind of level out or steady. But if we see big show list numbers once again, we may find some more selling pressure as the week goes on if we look at lower cash again. The October is well below where the cash is, but it kind of depends on what the cash trade is going to do. It's right at that $100 mark, which October and December are trading now below.
What have you been hearing from your sources around there in cattle country in the southern plains about the level of cash cattle pricing right now? Do they think that we are near a bottom at this point or not?
Well, they certainly would like to think that. A lot of the rhetoric talks about the record profits held by the packers and sharing in some of those profits. So they'd certainly like to keep the cash market steady to higher in here, even though the cutout values are turning lower. There's very little reason why the cash trade should continue to plummet, in the next weeks ahead.
On the hogs, if we can bring back the lean hog table there was news over the weekend that African swine fever has been found in the Philippines, and one report says in at least 7 villages there, and yet we still have a hard time picking up this lean hog market there. How is it that it's kind of able to ignore that?
Yeah, the hog market, sometimes we'll just ignore some of the news items out there, factoring, maybe it's already factored in or just discounting it entirely. We're kind of doing that this morning with triple-digit gains on October contract. A lot of heavy spread trade being noted today with decent February trade lower, and that's kind of the opposite of what was going on last week, where we saw some of those deferred contracts gain against the October. Looks like we're unwinding a lot of those spreads in early trade so far this morning.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Thanks, Brian, for the time. Brian Hoops of Midwest Market Solutions, and he is based in Springfield, Missouri, and we're up and running. Everything's off and running, and just kind of, as I said last week, like herding cats. It's all over the place this morning.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.